All right. Let's get back at it. Hour or so. So, new technique that I'm going to try. So, a few things. First, more tape to try to reduce the issues with holding things steady while cutting. This, of course, will use up more tape. But anyway, while I do this, so I was looking at more YouTube videos yesterday on people who have various techniques cutting glass bottles. Cutting glass bottles is tricky because you can, of course, only cut the bottle on one side. The bottle is thick, all kinds of issues. And a lot of them seem to use thermal shock in order to trigger the breakage. Plus some techniques around perhaps scoring both sides. There are a few things that I tried yesterday off camera that didn't work, and some things that I want to try now. So what didn't work? Scoring using a propane torch to heat up the glass and then thermal shocking in cold water. That first doesn't always make a break. It didn't make a break, a desired break, until the whole thing cracked. So that didn't work. There was also the score one side and then alternatively pour boiling water and thermal shocking in ice water. That worked. That only worked kind of. It managed to begin a crack, but couldn't continue the crack along. And then there was double scoring both sides. A guy was able to break off of a giant piece of glass, like a 2-inch strip, which aspect ratio is the right aspect ratio. And he basically just snapped at the bottom, and then the crack got carried all the way up the line. That worked on big pieces of similar aspect ratio, but didn't work for me on a small piece. What I want to try today is a combination of and then soldering iron. So there was a guy who needed to cut an irregular shape out of the side of a glass bottle. And what he did was he had one end of the irregular shape was a straight line. So he scored that with the glass cutter and then used a soldering iron to trigger thermal shock breaking along the line and then kind of carrying the crack along and controlling where the crack moved based upon heating the bottle with a soldering iron. Using the TS80, that did not work. And that's most likely because I have this pointy tip on this, and this just doesn't carry enough heat. I might use the other different soldering iron for that. So what I'll try, I don't know if I have enough time to try all of them, is first, I want to try double scoring plus hot water, the hot water, cold water method. And then if that doesn't work, double scoring with the soldering iron, my older one, right, the 898D that has this bigger tip on it, and try that. Maybe take the tip up hotter instead of doing 300C. Maybe try 350. And then also, I tried various mechanisms of holding down the.
Have you tried the Wonder Cutter?
On glass? Are there documented uses of people using the Wonder Cutter to cut glass? I don't know. I could. Yes, the Wonder Cutter is right over here. I could try it. I'm not sure that's the right. I don't think the Wonder Cutter has the right tip for scoring glass. because that blade
Very shoe.
is too sharp.
Said, but if you score, then try to use it to vibrate the crack.
All right. Anyway. Yes. Yeah, I could try that. That wouldn't be very hard to test out. And then I tried other ways of like dealing with the issue. This whole thing slides around. That the glass slides around against the cutter, and the ruler slides around on this. And I tried using some double-sided tape that I had that was supposed to be temporary, but it sticks way too well and create a whole bunch of mess. I had to throw a bunch of stuff away. So I think masking tape is the way to go. And I think what I want to do is I want to measure and then place and then just like tape everything down. But once I place the ruler, I'm going to tape the ruler down. The piece of glass taped down. And of course, this means when I double cut, I'm going to flip it over and take off the tape and whatever. I'll use up a bunch of tape. No big deal. And that'll save a lot of headache with like accidents with motion. Then I measured this. The width that I want is essentially, the dimensions are 140 by 20. And then the curve here is another, we'll say 2 millimeters. So I want to take 22 millimeters. So let's mark that. And then give this a shot. Okay. Maybe 2 millimeters. I am going to take down this ruler. I still want to mark this point because when I flip it over, I'm going to have to align the ruler on the other side to this mark. So I'm still going to mark it just to make sure there aren't any accidents or offsets when I flip this over. Okay.
Count for 2000. Said, future idea. Try making a jig. Count for 2000. Said, instead of all this tape.
Found a guy on Etsy who says, I will cut any piece of glass down to size for $13. I sent him a message saying, hey, can you cut 12 of these out for me? And I'm waiting for his response. There are some really interesting jigs that they make. The challenge is how much glass cutting hardware do I want to get? But yes, in theory, if I were to really be making a lot of these, yes, in theory, I think I could to make a jig. I guess the jig would normally be, I would typically size like based on the original stock. I think that's as good as it's going to get. So that's this side. You see there's about a 2 millimeter. All right, so you can't easily see, but there's about a 2 millimeter offset between the cut line and the drawing line. And that was way easier. Having like everything be not moving. This is the first time I tried this. I failed yesterday because the whole double-sided tape thing was so messy. But yeah, this really works. And masking tape comes off easily. And then I was digging down in my storage closet yesterday because there was a flood down in the storage closet, which fortunately didn't impact my particular closet. One of my neighbors was like, "Oh no, I have fungus and mushrooms growing in my storage unit." I went down there to take a look. Unfortunately, I was not impacted, but I did take an inventory of all of my tech shop machinery stuff, and it turned out I have a lot of blue tape. I don't know how I ended up with so many rolls, but downstairs, like every other crate of machining stuff, has like a roll of blue tape in it.
Count for 2000. Said, I'm thinking something along the lines of using the glow board to put a negative space into the draft board, then cut medium draft board, or maybe acrylic plot in and for cutting guide.
So that's an interesting question because I think I could, and Eric suggested this yesterday, that the Glowforge can etch glass directly. So it should be possible, again, if I were going to make more, for me to make a pattern instead of using this glass cutter, etch on the Glowforge directly. Now the problem is the alignment for flipping over. So if I were to bother making a jig, then yeah, what I probably do is I make a jig out of some kind of poster board, and use that jig so that I could directly etch the glass on the Glowforge on both sides and stop using this thing altogether. So yeah, if I bring the Glowforge into the tool chest, I think that's what I would do. Because I haven't actually cut glass with my Glowforge, but I've used the 40-watt Epilogue before to etch glass during class at Tech Shop. And from what I can tell, on that etched glass, that there's really there doesn't seem to be, of course, if memory serves correctly, I don't think that there's any significant difference between the raster areas etched in glass with the laser cutter and what I'm creating with this. I also did a little bit more research on this tool, and this is like the cheapest glass cutter you can buy. In particular, the slightly more expensive glass cutters, like the ones that are over $10. have carbide wheels, and the ones that are like less than $10, and this one was less than $10, have steel wheels. So I don't think I'm doing anything special with this cutter that would be different um, than what would be etched with a laser. Um, but yeah, that makes. I mean, if I were to make a lot of these, I think that would be the process. Yeah, make a jig, use the jig in the Glowforge, and then use the Glowforge to etch these lines. Assuming, and this is the piece that I haven't figured out yet, that I have a way of breaking this high aspect ratio part, which is today's test, because I have not successfully. I've been able to cut a bunch of parts with similar aspect ratio to this yesterday off camera without just do trials, without measuring too precisely. But I was never able to successfully break off um, high aspect ratio part like this. Um, and so etching and jigs aside, my big problem is up to now, I can't actually break off this cut line. Um, okay, that was the best double-sided cut I've made thus far. Um, that was uh, way easier than anything I was doing yesterday. The lines seem pretty aligned. So now comes the part where like doing it this way is purely for the camera because I really should just do this over the sink. Um, but well, that's interesting. So that cracked it. It cracked it straight down here and then it veered off. So this part from here until here actually was pretty good. And then the crack decided to deviate from the score mark and go. Uh, oh yeah, I can feel it. So okay, let me see. All right, well, that was interesting. Um, All right, so what that's done is this is making this crack is growing.
What's the glass gonna be for?
Glass. It's an all-day weekend project to save about $100. These platens here for sharpening, they have glass on them. The ones with the glass pre-installed, $45 a pair. The plastic handles without the glass pre-installed, $25 a pair. So I bought a bunch that don't have any glass, and I need to cut glass down to size. Glass from Home Depot, like super cheap. Big 12 by 16 piece, $4. Glass cutter, $6. Cutting glass like this, surprisingly hard. All right, now the crack decided to go all the way out here.
I can't that guy. That long.
Oh no. So the crack on this side also started in the right spot and then veered in and then veered out. All right, so this just isn't controlled enough. I don't know what these guys on the internet who are cutting glass bottles, what magic they have in using this method, but the glass seems to want to. Clearly, the scoring makes a difference, but not enough of the difference. Not enough of a difference. The glass seems to want to crack where it wants to, or rather, okay. So I mean, I did the test yesterday. The glass doesn't just crack just because I poured water. For sure, the cracks are starting because of the scoring, but the cracks don't. The cracks don't really follow the score line. So this is not happening. All right, let me get rid of this, all this wet stuff. Get rid of the hot water. All right, well. So those were two of the best cuts, or the best scoring that I've made. All right, let's try Jerry's idea. Let's try the Wonder Cutter. Oh, I didn't even share this out. You guys found this because of subscription notifications.
Thought you'd need something hotter than boiling water as a heat source. I would have assumed a torch would do better.
Yes, I tried torch yesterday. The torch is too hot. I totally am wearing eye protection.
ITS bad guy. Said too.
Yeah, too hot. It cracked all over. It cracked like everywhere except along the cut line. Let me try the Wonder Cutter first because the soldering iron will take time to heat up. So let me set the soldering iron to 350, and then all right, let's see if this does anything. Makes Awesomely annoying sound.
I said, OMG, like being at my dentist, not like this.
Yes, this tool is very, very similar to that dentist thing, that hook that they use to scrape off plaque. The theory of operation is virtually identical. Um, okay, so it does do something. It's not totally ineffective, but I don't think it does the right thing, and I'm smelling like some scorched odor, which I'm not sure where that's coming from. Um, I think it's generating too much heat here. Um, when I touch this against the carbide, well, not carbide, whatever. When I touch this along the score line, it does cause fragments to shoot out, and that score line becomes a little thicker. But it does not cause the glass to fracture, which I guess is not surprising. You're only going to fracture the glass if you're like hear it's like it's a resonant frequency, which is not ultrasonic. Um, I don't think that this might be useful if you needed to deepen. All right, actually, let me try something. What happens against some random? Yeah, so nothing at all happens to glass that hasn't been scored. So if I run this along the score line, because that score line is rough, it will thicken that score line. Um, although that doesn't seem to be useful. Put that nice piece of shard away and let me get rid of the cutting mat. The reason I'm getting rid of the cutting mat is because I'm only using, well, because the cutting mat is for cutting. Um, it's not heat resistant, whereas this blue stuff is. Um, okay. The dude who cut this irregular line on a bottle basically just marked the outline in Sharpie, scored part of it to start, used the soldering iron to crack the glass on the score line, and was able to gradually make the crack follow this irregular pattern, right? Which was like essentially like a shield shape, right? It was flat on the top and then kind of like a U on the bottom, just by applying heat to those points. But kind of like my experience yesterday with the DSD, this seems to do nothing. This crack with the boiling water was interesting though, because when I was trying out boiling water yesterday, um, I did not have a problem with any of my test pieces forming cracks in unexpected locations. My problem was um, it was really hard to form the crack, and then after it got started, it was easy. It just wouldn't go any further. Like it crack from the top, and the crack propagated down to about yay far some amount here, and then like I would do a heat and cool cycle like 10 more times, and nothing would happen. Um, this seems to be doing nothing. And the guy who was doing it with the bottle wasn't like heating and cooling the bottle. Is anything happening? Anything at all? Another difference from yesterday, double gloves this time. I still got a little glass shard in my index finger yesterday, so I'm wearing 2 layers of gloves.
Time for 2000. Said, given that this is a straight cut, what would happen if you clamped wood to either side of the score and then hit one side?
That's interesting. So on a bigger scale, and there was this guy who was cutting large windows. Um, um, the technique that he used, this just isn't happening. Was because you don't actually need too much to start it. So what I can do is I can put like this ruler sticks up like 1 millimeter off the desk. So stick this along the line here, and then push down. Chris, it was pretty broken already. When I was trying this yesterday, I guess in a bigger piece of glass, what the guy did was basically he started on the end and the crack ran all the way up the line. But in general, I'm having problems with getting the crack to run along this line. Um, um, let's see, what do I have? So we could say, well, what happens if I took something with a backing and then clamp this part and then push down on the other end. Let's see if I have anything bigger. Okay, let's see. These are stirring sticks that came from Tap Plastics. Um, um, hmm. All right. Uh, now what's my plan for pressing down on this jagged piece of glass? Hmm. 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 uh, oh, okay. Uh, uh, that's what this ball here is for. It's for hitting glass. This seems kind of wasteful. It means then I can't just create a grid of these. I um out of this like gigantic piece of glass. Okay, it's not gigantic. I have another bigger piece of glass, right? But all the glass I had here, I gotta bust up a lot of glass to get this still kind of. I'm not gonna be able to strike that edge now. Now I have this. Uh, yeah. So good news is that the cut line redirected the the crack. Uh, the bad news is I still have these three sharp pieces sticking out. I guess what I can do is try to localize the stress. Should be hitting this on the other side. The, all of these cuts are slanted this way. So this way, then I strike off a lot of small shards. Here, I won't strike any of those thin areas. Um, it's not happening. Um, they do make these um, pliers that have a big flush clamping area that are used for snapping along lines like this. I don't have one. Maybe let's see if I can use this other quick clamp. No, this quick clamp is too soft. Uh, can I use to grab onto this, break it off? So what does not work, which I tried yesterday, it's just like needle nose pliers, because they don't grab on. Surface that they grab on is not isn't flush on both sides, and they make a mess. Oh, I know what I can use. Um, I just don't know if I want to. Uh, Fully. Thinking back, I didn't buy the tool that I'm thinking of. Um, which is just as well. I wouldn't have used it for this purpose. Uh, 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 how do I get these little bits off? Get these little bits off. How inconvenient. How do I get these off? Okay, that worked. But of course, mystery upon mystery. It did not follow the cut line. Uh, it, let's try this one. slipped out of place. Much harder to get. Let's try this. It's hard to build the stack in midair. So we set it up like this. Tape it. Then lift it. I suppose this is the reason why we have so many rolls of blue tape in the in the machining crates. Didn't propagate to that bit. Really, fixing this is pointless because there's no way that I'm making 12 more of these this way. This is just a matter of like, I won't give up. We'll at least get one part out of this. But but this technique will not will not work. Um there is there's no way that I'm going to spend an hour apart on this. It'll take me 11 hours. Capture as many of these small glass fragments as possible. I have the feeling by the time I figure this out, the dude on Etsy will be able to just make them for me. Um, so what do I have here? One good cut on this side. And the reason why this one is good is because the last piece that I broke off of this end was double length. One side, which is all jagged because I tried breaking it off from this side, and of course, ended up busting up the whole rest of this anyway. Which means to get 1 3/4 inch wide piece, I sacrificed essentially 3 inches on either side. So it cost me 7 inches of glass to get 3/4 of an inch glass out of this. And it's still jaggy here. I'd have to. This is small enough that I can sand it down, but I'm not going to do that here. I need to do that underwater because I don't want to kick up all this glass dust. Yeah. that I even have this piece is just like pure dumb tenacity. But this just does not work. That does not work. Um, need a different plan. Which right now plan seems to be get somebody else to make them for me. Because if the dude on Etsy can make this for $13 and then ship them to me for $7, then it'll cost $20 for 12, which is still for one is the markup to get. Um, yeah. Does this even fit? If I clean these up. Yeah, so if I clean up these edges, this would fit. Although I also have to take off another piece here. But this would not be a high aspect ratio part, so that it shouldn't be nearly as hard. But that was just way too much work. Way too much work. Okay, that's it for today.